I surrender to the Almighty my mind, speech, and body. Vanakkam. We are currently reading the book called Thirukkural, written by a great poet called Thiruvalluvar. It is one of the important books given to us by our early Tamil ancestors. A few centuries after the time of Thiruvalluvar, a scholar called Parimel Alagar wrote the commentaries for this book, and that is what we are using even today. This is a book that talks about aram for the life of humans. Aram is nothing but a term used to denote the order in nature. Our ancestors tell us that there is some form of order in the functioning of nature around us, like the motion of the planets around the sun, or the arrangement of petals of a flower, the functioning of a beehive or a colony of ants. There is some kind of order in nature, and as long as this order is maintained, there is peace and harmony. And humans are also a part of this creation, and therefore it is possible to conduct our lives also in tune with this natural order. But how is this possible to observe such an order from nature and apply it to the life of humans? Our ancestors tell us that there are a few people who have yoga kachi or yogic vision, and they have the ability to observe nature keenly and to understand many truths that are not immediately obvious to ordinary humans. And Thiruvalluvar, the author of Thirukkural, is one such person, and he has used his yogic vision to give us the aram for the conduct of human life, specifically the aram for a married person. That is, he is showing us a way to live our married life in a manner that will not only allow us to be peaceful and happy, but also reach fame and eventually a space of unlimited bliss called as Veedu in Tamil. This aram, or the way of life for a married person, is called as il aram, and the phase of life where two people enter into marriage is called as grihastham. Thiruvalluvar is showing us how to form healthy attachments in our journey in the married life. We start our journey by falling in love with our partner, then we learn to extend that love to our children, and then to relatives, friends, and eventually to the whole society in this process of married life. And when we reach that stage where we begin to care for the entire society, fame becomes inevitable, he says, and such a person would feel like having lived a full and a satisfying life. And when someone reaches that kind of satisfaction, they would start looking for a bigger kind of happiness. And Thirukkural tells us that it is possible to experience an even bigger happiness, and the way to do that is by letting go of all of our attachments. And he says that only someone who has formed and enjoyed the attachments and lived his or her life fully will be able to let go of the attachments. The aram for this way of life, where someone can let go of the attachments, is called as Thuravaram, and this Thuravaram would lead a person to Veedu or Mukti or Moksha or liberation. So Illaram and Thuravaram are the two arams taught in this book. Now the book is divided into three big sections called as Paal. We have the Arathu Paal first, that discusses the Illaram and the Thuravaram, followed by the Paal, which talks about the principles of management, which is essential for wealth creation, and we need money in order to live a good married life, isn't it? So this is addressed next. And finally, the book concludes with the Paal, which addresses the principle of pleasure. Because life is not just about aram and wealth alone, we also need to experience pleasure. So aram, porul and inbam are the three main sections of the book. Where are we standing now? Parimel Alagar gave a beautiful summary about what this book is all about and who should read it. This is called as the Urai Payiram, and we finished that section. Then we entered the Arathu Paal. In Arathu Paal, we entered the first subsection called as Payira. There are 4 chapters in Payira. These 4 chapters are the introduction portion of the book. The first chapter or Adhigaram is called as Kadavul Vaazhthu, or in praise of God, and we are standing in this chapter. This chapter gives us an idea of what is God and the different ways of worshipping God and why we would want to get into the practice of worship. And we have finished 2 Kurals so far. First, we saw the fundamental principle of God, as in God is the foundation of all creation. And then we saw how our education is related to God. Today we will see the Kural 3, which talks about approaching the Almighty with our mind, or manam in Tamil. Now you see, the adhikarams and the Kurals are always stacked in a logical fashion. They were not randomly bunched together. In the first Kural, the nature of the supreme power was explained. In the second Kural, Valluvar explained how to use our education to reach the supreme. In the next Kurals, Thiruvalluvar introduces some more ways through which we can approach the supreme power. Now the Kural 3 goes like this. Malar misai aeginan, manadi sernthaar, nila misai needu vaazhvar. A quick translation of this Kural would be, God will arrive hurriedly to reside in the hearts of those who constantly think about His glorious feet, and such people will live forever. So it looks like this Kural is giving a way for us to live forever, right? This sounds like a path to immortality. Well, we cannot live in this human body forever. Living forever is possible only in mukti or Veedu or liberation. Because they say that when you reach your final destination of Veedu or mukti, we come out of the repeated cycles of birth and death, and therefore we continue to be in a state of bliss forever. So this Kural is referring to attaining Veedu or mukti or moksha. So the last part of the Kural, nila misai needu vaazhvar, it means we can reach the state of Veedu. So who can attain this state? The first part of the Kural says, Malar misai aeginan, manadi sernthaar. It means those who think about the God who sits on the flower. A God who sits on the flower? Who could that be? Let's see what Parimazhalagar says. Malar is a Tamil word. It means flower. So we might wonder what flower is Valluvar referring to. Is it a lotus or a rose or a sunflower? And how is this related to God and Veedu? Parimazhalagar clarifies that Malar here refers to our heart, not the physical heart, but the intelligence in us that helps us to feel our emotions. What do we mean when we say a heart that cherishes beautiful memories? It's not the physical heart, right? I will hold you dearly in my heart. What do we mean by that? We don't mean the physical body part. It's a part of our intelligence that remembers, cherishes, and feels emotions. So Malar here in this Kural refers to the heart or the emotional mind. In Tamil, we call it as manam. So going forward, I will be using the term manam or mind to keep things simple. But why is Parimazhalagar saying that our manam is like a flower? Because in the original natural state, the human mind or manam is supposed to be tender, just like a flower. We have made it violent and rough and tough by living in this world. But violence is not the natural state of our minds. How can we say that? When we observe the animal kingdom, we find that even the most ferocious of animals like lion and tiger, when they give birth to cubs, they tend to care for the little ones. That ferocity with which they hunt their prey is completely lost when it comes to caring for the little ones. Under normal circumstances, when the adult animal is hungry, it doesn't look at its own cub as a source of food, right? So in the natural state, it looks like even the wildest of animals tend to have a tender manam. When love enters the manam, then even wild animals tend to have a certain tenderness in their approach. Then what about us humans? We are said to be more intelligent than these animals. Then at the very least, we should possess this much intelligence at least that these animals possess, isn't it? We can't be worse than them. If these animals show tenderness, then our manam too should be tender in the natural state. Violence is something that we have taken up to survive in this world. That is not our natural state of mind. It is an acquired nature. So Parimazhalagar says that the word Malar here refers to our manam or mind, which is as tender as a flower. And then he says God is going to come and sit on this flower. Actually, many other poets too have written about this kind of inner worship where the soul that resides inside the human body is itself worshipped as God, because the soul is in reality a reflection of the Supreme God. For instance, in Thevaram, the fourth Tirumurai, the author Thirunavukkarasar, or more fondly known as Appar, writes about this practice of inner worship of God Shiva. He tells us that there is no need to go to different places in search of God if you know how to see Him in your heart. In this poem, he shows us how he does it. The poem goes like this: Kayame Kovilaaga, Kadimanam Adimayaga, Vaaymaye Thuimayaga, Manamani Ilingamaga, Neyame Neyum Paala, Niraya Neeramaya Vati, Pusane Isanarka Potri Katinome. See, in Hindu temples, it is a common prayer ritual to offer milk by pouring it over the Shivalingam. So in this poem, Appar says that he considers this body as a temple and the soul that is inside the body as a Shivalingam, or the God that resides in this temple, and he considers the mind which is under control as a slave, and by keeping the thoughts pure, he says, I worship you by pouring my love like milk over the lingam. I find that to be a very beautiful idea, to find God within our own mind or manam. We don't have to go outside in search of the Supreme. So anyway, Thiruvalluvar says that God resides in our own mind, which is tender like a flower. Actually, it is not only Thiruvalluvar, but many Tamil poets refer to our mind as a flower on which God resides. For instance, in more recent times, a poet called Swamy Vipulananda writes, Vellai nira malligaiyo, verenda maamalaro, vallal adiyanekku vaitha malar eduvo, Vellai nira poovumalla, verenda malarumalla, ulla kamalamadi uttamanar venduvadu. See here, the poet raises a question in the first two lines. He asks, what flower is most suitable for the feet of God? Is it a white jasmine or any other flower? And in the next two lines, he answers this question. He says, the flower that God asks for is not a white flower or any other flower. He wants the inner lotus. So the basic idea that these authors are trying to tell us is, God is someone who resides within us in our mind or manam. So Malar misai aeginan in the Kural means God will come into the flower that is the human mind. The next question that would arise is, in what shape or form would he come? Valluvar says, he will come in that specific shape and form that you want him to come. If all your life you have believed that a cell phone is the form and shape of a God, then Valluvar says that he will come in the shape of a cell phone for you. He will come in the form that the person desires. If someone thinks that God is in the shape of a pen, then he will come and reside in the shape of a pen in their manam. Hinduism propagates the idea that God is present everywhere in the living and non-living things. That is why they have turned stones into God to remind us of this truth. So Parimalanaga tells us that God will come in the form that the devotee desires. There is a beautiful story from Kamba Ramayanam to show this fact. The Ramayanam is one of the two important epics of Hinduism, the other one being Mahabharatam. The epic Ramayanam is traditionally ascribed to Saint Valmiki in Sanskrit. Kamba Ramayanam is a Tamil epic written by the Tamil poet Kambar. Though there are differences between the Sanskrit and the Tamil versions of the Ramayanam, fundamentally both authors narrate the life of Prince Rama. Here is the story in a nutshell. A long time ago, there was a king called Dasarathan who ruled over a place called Ayodhya. He had 3 wives and 4 sons. The sons were Raman, Lakshmanan, Bharathan and Shatrugnan. Raman was the eldest son and he was loved by everyone. When he came of age, he married Sita, the princess of a nearby kingdom. One day, the king Dasarathan decided that it was time to give his throne to the eldest son Raman. And everyone seemed happy with the decision except Queen Kaikeyi, because she wanted her own son Bharathan to rule, not the stepson Raman. and because of an oath that the king had made to her years before, the queen Kaikeyi managed to convince the king to agree to banish Raman for 14 years and to crown her own son Bharathan. But Bharathan was a devoted brother to Raman. He couldn't imagine doing this to his beloved brother. But what to do? Raman had to leave, and so with great difficulty, Prince Bharathan agreed to wait for 14 years. He promised to Raman that if he did not return immediately when the 14 years elapsed, he would give up his own life by jumping into the fire. He agreed to govern Ayodhya not as its ruler but as Raman's representative. So, in order to symbolize this, what he did was he took Raman's sandals or footwear and placed them on the throne, and that's how he ruled the kingdom. He literally worshipped Raman's sandals. See, Raman is considered as an incarnation of God Vishnu, and he is still today worshipped in India. Anyway, so Raman proceeded to the forest and lived through his exile. During this time, he faced many challenges. His wife was being kidnapped by the evil king of Sri Lanka called Ravana, and so Raman had to gather an army and fight against Ravana and rescue his wife. So all that happened in the exile. As the 14 years drew to a close, they were still in Sri Lanka and they would need a few more days to come back home. So now Raman worried that his brother Bharathan might kill himself if he didn't show up on time. And so what he did was he sent his most trusted and loyal friend Hanuman to meet Bharathan and to inform him that all went well and Raman would return shortly, so please don't die. By the way, this is Hanuman. He is an ardent devotee of Raman. He is also considered as a Hindu god. He is not a human being but belongs to a species called Vanar or the forest dwellers. That's why Hanuman's features resemble more of an ape. Now we will step out of the story. Some devotees of Lord Raman raised an important question. I just now told you that God will appear in whatever form the devotee worships. If Bharathan worshipped Raman with all his heart, then in time of danger, Raman should have appeared in person to save Bharathan from killing himself, isn't it? Then why did Raman send Hanuman instead? Bharathan did not worship Hanuman. Scholars explain that Bharathan worshipped the sandals of Raman. So, in time of danger, Raman sent his holy feet. In Tamil, we use the term Thiruvadi for holy feet. Hanuman was a loyal devotee of Raman, so much so that in the Vaishnava tradition, he is also referred to as Raman's holy feet or Raman's Thiruvadi. So Bharathan worshipped the sandals or the feet of Raman. So Raman sent his holy feet, they say. So that was an interesting analogy. Anyway, the point of this story is that God will come in whatever form the devotee worships. Parimiladagar is saying the same thing, that God will come to reside in our manam in exactly the form that the devotee wants. I find this idea very calming and peaceful, that there is no need to run around many temples and seeking for God somewhere outside. It's very simple. He can be found in the inner mind in whatever shape and form that we desire and worship there. And that is the way that Valluvar and many other poets who have experienced God are telling us. Now, the next question that would arise is when? When will God come to reside in our hearts, and how? Will He walk and come, or will He come after a certain period of time after testing our sincerity? Exactly when will He come? Just think about it, and we will address that in the next video. Today we have seen that the mind is tender like a flower and God resides here in whatever shape and form that the devotee desires. And with that idea, I will end here. Thank you all for listening. Nandri, Vanakkam.